Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Small Town Big Business, a podcast about doing big business in small town USA. My name is Allison Hassler with Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals.
And I am Russ Williams. I'm director of EThOs. We are a small business incubator and also co-working spaces and training and development here in downtown Marion. In fact, we're recording right here at the Citadel building on Tower Square Plaza in Marion, Illinois. And Allison, I want to ask you, what is Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals?
Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals is a unique boutique and luxury vacation rental property management for specifically short-term rentals.
So cool.
So your Airbnbs, your VRBOs, all of those acronyms of places that you would go to find a place to stay, we provide that for multiple properties. We have about 20 right now and growing.
And you are one of the sponsors of Small Town Big Business Podcast, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the other sponsors, namely Fowler Heating and Cooling, Arcadia Wealth Group, Black Diamond Harley Davidson and RV, the Watermark Auto Group Foundation, Swinford Media Group, and also Union Street Arts. Thank you so much for making this possible.
And you can subscribe to the Small Town Big Business community wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube and Facebook. Subscribing is free, and you won't miss upcoming episodes that are released every 2 weeks.
And we are hoping by the time you watch or listen to this that we are over 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We're right now just under 100, so we're going to ask everybody to subscribe. Even if you subscribe to the podcast and you only listen, go on YouTube, look for Small Town Big Business, become a subscriber, because everything changes for us when we reach over 100. We get to customize our URL, which we think will reach more people.
That'll be exciting. And if you are new to our podcast, welcome. We interview small business owners and learn how they thrive in rural communities. And today, I am so excited. We have a huge list and a big title behind William Lowe, short last name, very long title. So,
so it fits on a name tag,
yes.
Right? Got to have his last name.
CEO of New Kahala Restaurant, co-founder of Bake Me Happy Food Company and Southern Illinois Eats with wife Keisha Lowe. And the most recent is executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Carbondale, Illinois, which is our neighbor to the west. William Lowe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We've got a lot to cover in that list of titles we have here.
I love to talk, so you guys are in for it. So.
Awesome. Well, let's start at the beginning. So let's start with New Kahala Restaurant, because I think that sounds like it was the first thing that you were in business with. And so let's start about, what's your story?
Sure. So my parents actually own it. I just run it, but I've been there since I was 9. So I do all the work, but I have to pay. So no. So my parents moved here from New York. They wanted somewhere a little more quiet to raise me and my brother. So we moved here around like 92, and then my dad had to learn how to cook in New York City, so he wanted to bring some of that here. And then my uncle actually owned a couple of restaurants here already. I don't know for those who've been here a while, Yanjing, Kew Gardens, Kahala Gardens, and Kahala Fast Foods. They were all owned by my uncle.
Oh, wow.
So he sold Kahala Fast Foods to my dad in 92. So we took it over, and then we recently, I think 7 years ago, moved from the Strip to East Grand on the corner of Wall and Grand, and then we've been there ever since. Just
what food do you feature there?
Chinese food. So Chinese food, but I always tell everybody it's a little different because my parents are Taiwanese. Oh. So we have a little bit of different flair. Most traditional Chinese restaurants are owned by mainland Chinese people, so it's different, different flavors of different regions. So.
Okay, you're conveniently located next to one of my properties that is part of Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals. So you're because it's within walking distance, and I'm happy to. That is the number one restaurant that I recommend.
Yeah.
Because
which property is that?
So it is Wall Street Boutique, which is in the Old Water Department.
Oh, Oh,
Yes.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's where I think there's a media company there.
Yep.
I think and then it's
Growing media.
Growing Media is also in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. That's a cool building.
It is. It's a very cool building.
Tell us about Bake Me Happy Bakery, food company.
So full disclosure, that's more my wife. I'm just voluntold to do things. So typical husband role. So my wife, she was a cosmetologist by trade. COVID kind of burned her out on it. So, and plus, she needed to pivot, because with things being shut down, you really couldn't really do hair. Mm-hmm. And she always loved making cakes for families and friends. And then during the pandemic, she got a cottage food license, and she started baking cakes for different people, just posting on her page. And she credits, I think, the owner of Thai D and Marion. Mm-hmm. They wanted a cake, and then so they purchased a cake through my wife, and then they posted on the Eats page, and people were like, "Oh, this is really good." Yeah. So that kind of grew her business, just cool. A lot. And then so we rented a brick and mortar. I think it's like 2051 South Illinois, I think, off the top of my head. It's where the old Arnie's sandwich shop used to be.
Oh, yeah.
So,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and we're still doing renovations.
Mainstay in Carbondale?
Yeah, in Carbondale. So we'll be open, I think, our storefront will be open in a couple of months. But she's been doing a lot of catering, a lot of pop-ups and things like that. So her goal is to, and like we discuss this a lot, if you're going to do the same thing everybody else does, then why bother?
Yeah. Right.
So, her biggest thing is she wants to do things that are, and we love to travel too. So we go to New York, New Orleans, Vegas. And our goal is to, every time we go somewhere, we come back, we bring something back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so all her products, if you look at it, they're always just a little different. I say they're always a little extra, but that's what sets her apart. And I think, I'm part of small businesses trying to kind of push the envelope to improve and stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. I follow her on Instagram or Facebook. I'm not sure which one it is, but everything looks magnificent. It looks like she's been doing this for years and years and years.
Yeah, and she's not, she's not classically trained. Yeah. So she's just self-taught. So, yeah. But she does have a chemistry background that she credits on helping, because baking is chemistry. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you founded SI Eats on Facebook, which is how many of us know you. Yeah. Tell us about how that got started. When did it get started? How?
I think it was born from me and my wife loving to travel, loving to eat, obviously. But when we come back, and we wanted to start a food vlog for the longest time. But the few times that I've tried doing a food vlog, I think it was like 18 takes, and we just gave up. We were like, no. Actually, I think she gave up. I remember it was Big Blue's Q, and I was trying to talk about their smoked bologna sandwich, and I kept screwing up the smoked bologna part for some wild reason. Yeah. And I think 18 takes, my wife was like, no, we're done. So we wanted to do something like that for years. And then I think Newell House in Carbondale closed. Yeah. Fat Patty's closed. And we were like,
which were great places.
They were, especially Fat Patty's, those green beans, the burgers great. Newell House they both had great food. The Grotto was super cool to go down and have a few drinks with. And we were like, somebody has to do something. You have all these, no offense to any large chains that are listening or watching, but it's like, they have a big budget. If you want to open a Dunkin' Donuts, you got to have millions of dollars in liquid and other assets. And you have an R&D team, you've got a marketing team. But if you're just a mom and pop restaurant, you don't have those resources. So, and you don't have that promotion. So we were like, hey, how do we introduce, all these restaurants to the internet, right. And then we were like, well, what are we good at? So we're good at Facebook, because I'm on there a lot. I run my family's Facebook page, et cetera, et cetera. So we're like, hey, let's start this Facebook page and see where it takes us. So we were expecting maybe like 1,000 people just to kind of humor us. But I think as of today, we're at 49,000 members on our Facebook.
Wow.
So I know it's been a
I believe
wild
it, though.
ride. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah. It has, it is one of the most active Facebook groups that I've ever seen. And
very engaged people about food.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And it seems as if for the most part, people are there to support and brag, and I don't see a lot of negative about that. I'm sure that as the administrator and moderator, you probably see a little bit of that, but over by and large, it's people that are saying, I just ate here and it was amazing. I just wanted to share it on Southern Illinois Eats. So is that what you see? And,
that's what I see. And it wasn't easy. I've had people reach out to me, oh, well, I want to start this group, my own community. But it's a lot of work. We have 3 or 4 moderators that, I don't make money off of it. So they're not paid, Right. So, but it's, what we've really done is we've kind of funneled everybody into the mindset is that we're not food review. We're not talking, oh, the food is great or food is terrible. We don't do that. Like we don't bash businesses on there just because, as my wife Keisha always says, don't yuck somebody's yum, Everybody's food's different. Everybody likes different things. And also, it's economically driven. Like our mission of the group is to drive butts into seats. Yeah. So so if you want to complain about something, we ask for it to be constructive. Yeah. If you're just going to be like, oh, the food is terrible, I'm never going back, then those things get deleted. Right. And if you're just what I call a schmuck, I use that term a lot on the group. If you're a schmuck, then you just get booted because we're there to support restaurants, not to bash restaurants. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think as any small business owner, that's our worst fear is having 1 or 2 people that just either had a bad day or a misunderstanding and bash your food or your product on social media, and that's a deal breaker.
So I'm going to corner you.
Yeah,
I know you have to stay kind of in the middle when you're promoting one or the other. But for you, what's the coolest, newest food place in Southern Illinois that I may have not heard of yet?
Yeah.
I think that we go through phases, but my current phase, sorry everybody else, is Ma's Filipino Cuisine.
Okay.
They're just down the street.
In Marion, Illinois.
Yeah. And I've never had Filipino food, before that. And I think when we eat out at places, it's not, the food is great, but the owners are amazing.
Yeah.
So, they're nice owners, they chat with you, and they let you try everything. So when you go there, you're like, oh, well, this is a place that I want to support, I want to eat. Yeah. So we go there like once a week. Yeah. Probably a little too much.
Well, and as executive director of the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce, that's very gracious and kind of you.
Wait. So the underground on Carbondale is also really good too.
Yeah. We'll get back on that, all those subjects, right?
So I feel like the Southern Illinois Eats also really put the radar on a lot of food trucks.
Yeah.
And a lot of what back in the day, from my growing up, we called them chuck wagons.
Yeah.
And so the food trucks, the chuck wagons, the vendors that are mobile, it really gave them a platform to be able to say where they're going to be and those sort of things and help them create their own following too. Would you agree, or would you say that because and maybe it was timing, because the Southern Illinois Eats also kind of was around the same time as the beginning of COVID? Was it intentionally as a reactionary response to COVID of helping say like, okay, who's open now and who's doing delivery, and were you trying to keep up with those sort of things, or did it just happen to be that way?
It just happened to be that way. But the food trucks thing, that we have a couple of sister groups now. So we have the Southern Illinois Eats and we have the Southern Illinois Food Trucks page, which is helmed by Babe Hoover. But she does that. She reached out to me because she wanted to do a Facebook, a more food truck focused page, and I was like, sure. I was like, we'll do it on the umbrella of the Eats page, and then you do that, so it was good because that way, if you want food trucks, and you can look at the food truck group, but if you want a dining experience, you can go on the Eats page, or and we encourage every small restaurant to post on whatever applies to them. So we don't, just because it's a food truck page, we're not like, oh, well, don't post on there. Just post anywhere you like. Because ultimately, if you get people to your your chair or your seat or your window, my that's my whole goal.
Sure.
So kind of circling back with COVID, I mean, it was a good time, I think, because we had just started, I think maybe 8 or 9 months, and we were starting to get traction, and COVID hit, and then when they announced restaurants were going to be closing as a mandate, like my heart sunk. I was like, this is going to be a killer. So I think I spent maybe, I don't know how many hours procuring that list of places that were offering curbside, dine-in, and that had some controversy to it, just because of mandates. But I tell people, look, it's we have to look at it as the long term. Like how do we sustain these restaurants long term to keep them alive? Because if they're done, they're not coming back. So.
Right. So I have to share my idea to find out whether you think it's good or not. So we were in Monterrey, Mexico. My family and I have got some family there, and they actually had a plaza. It was called a Gastro Plaza, where the food trucks were weeknights and weekends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that would be awesome in Southern Illinois if there was a designated place where food trucks could every Friday, Saturday night, or whenever we could sustain those.
Yeah. I know Carbonell, we've got, do you know the old fire station by where Schnucks, right next to Schnucks?
Yeah.
But they're converted that into a food truck park.
Nice.
And then north of town, where the old Dillinger feed elevator's at, somebody bought that, and then they're converting it to a food truck park. I mean, that'd be great. I think just coming from an Asian background, like I love night market. I love being able to, go and walk through and try 8-9 different food stalls or trucks.
That's right.
And I really want that for our community. So most of our food trucks are, they're 10 to 8 or 9. They're not real late. So I'm hoping we'll get, and food trucks are, I mean, it is a big thing, but I think for our region, it's still in its infancy. So I think hopefully in a few years we'll get younger, food truck owners that want to stay open until 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah, because I think even for Marion, after like 9 or 10, it's slim pickings.
It is,
right?
Yeah. So. By the time I find out there is a food truck there, by the time I go, it's closed.
Yeah, yeah. But if you had one open a little later, I know there's different events. That could be great, I think.
Yep.
Back in the day, Dave's Bagels, right?
Yeah. Back in the day, Winston's Bagels.
Or Winston's Bagels. I'm sorry, Winston's Bagels is who I was thinking of.
JC's Bagels.
And
that was they were like across the street. They were like they were like the competition.
Founding fathers of late night snacking food trucks, for sure.
A funny story with Dave's Bagels. I have a TikTok page, and I shared it, and then people from all over the U.S. was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's a bagel. Like, how do you not know?" And they're like, "Well, we're not from the Midwest. In New York, that's not a bagel." And I'm like, "All right, man, whatever."
Well, those food trucks go all the way back to the founding of Benny's Italian Restaurant, where the owner of that, the founder of that, first pushed a cart.
Tamale cart.
It was tamales. Yeah, he pushed tamales around the square here. Yep. Yeah, way, a long time ago. Yeah, before my time. Yeah.
So I want to go back to your position with the Chamber of Commerce, because I do feel like you have this very unique view now of what different businesses need, what businesses are looking for, what challenges that they have, and I would love for you to speak on that and what your position provides now as a chamber, and the importance of small businesses being involved in their chambers.
I mean, it's my quick elevator pitch for chambers, But, I think, and coming in from an outsider, because I've never had chamber experience before going into that role, and what really sparked my interest was being the admin for the Eats page. It kind of spawned off into restaurants reaching out, "Hey, I have this issue. How would you recommend what's the best way to tackle that issue?" And I would work with businesses on giving them ideas and pointers, things that they could do. So when the position came up, I was like, oh, well, this lets me kind of expand what I'm doing. Yeah. And I have a real passion for it. I love doing that. So that's why I applied. So I think the chamber is important for every community. I work with Karen here in Marion as well. I think it's just giving small businesses a voice. It's a place. It's a place to a network. It's a place to we have every chamber has a government advocacy side. So we kind of speak out on behalf of the chamber members. We allow them to have marketing and promotional things, and I think. You do business with people that that you trust, So if you're picking dinner, and I'll go back to Ma's Filipino cuisine. If there was 2 Filipino restaurants, but I know one that I deal with the chamber all the time, they're real, I know who they are, I know their story, and I'm gonna gravitate towards that. So the chamber provides that. That way, you're not just a business by itself. You have a community that you can depend on, that you can go to, and I think the chamber really fulfills that need. And it really helps, because if you can't solve a problem, somebody in your chamber, they can help you solve it for sure. Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm a new business, why chamber? Why would I spend my money on joining the chamber? Is there one particular reason?
I think exposure. I think that's the umbrella term that I use for it. Exposure. You go to and I tell everybody this. It's the chamber is one of those where you get what you put in. So if you want to just pay your dues and then not do anything, then you're not getting the best value out of it. So when you join the chamber, you go to the luncheons, you go to the meetings, you join a committee, you get active in your community, and that's how people get to know you, and they learn about you, and they want to come support you. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. So is there challenges that you see that are similar across the board when you see people networking, or within your view of the chamber, or even on the Southern Illinois Eats page? Was there a common challenge that you saw among small business owners that you were able to help with, or that you could provide a solution?
I think it's fair for me to kind of separate that into restaurants,
sure,
and also
yeah.
non-restaurants, and I think any business, the thing is trying to get people in your door, and that's the biggest thing. So when you have a support network, that really helps. We all do ribbon cuttings, we all do business after hours, and you get people to come together, and then they want to talk about their business. And I think having I think something that I really see is young entrepreneurs. There really hasn't been an opportunity for them to really kind of mingle, because to be honest, the chamber is kind of it's a storied organization. So I think young people, we all digest media, and we all consume media and everything a little differently. So we need to give the younger entrepreneurs the opportunity to have them see the benefits. Because if you look at you go to most chamber meetings, it's older people. Sorry. So we need to give them. We need to kind of let them see the value of it, and then try to bring them in. But also understand that every generation does things a little differently. So we need to kind of pivot to see what's the best way to kind of help them with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for restaurants, I go to all day long with the restaurants, but I think food costs,
sure.
Power bill, that's super right now. I think for our restaurant, New Kahala, I think our bill went from $2,600 to $7,000, just because we have 30 feet of hood, we have 2 walk-in fridges and a walk-in freezer. Those have to be on 24/7. You can't.
You're talking about utilities alone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's just the annual bill alone. Power and gas, it's $7,000. So that's and food costs. It's. But I think, as with any small business, you have to pivot. You can either turn over and call it lock your doors, or you can pivot and get creative and trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's dig into that, because food service been hit hard. It's still tough right now with employees and inflation and everything like that. So being in the food service, how would you encourage another business owner or maybe a startup? I'm surprised how many people are coming into EThOs saying, I want to start a business. Okay, what kind of business? Food service. And I'm like, oh gosh. It's not what I would start, right?
Yeah.
But they're passionate about that. Food service people are passionate about what they create, right?
Yeah.
And they want to deliver. So what encouraging words, what can I tell them?
I tell everybody, don't do it. I set them up. No, I give them a doom and gloom picture, And if you kind of want to do food, then you'll not do it. But if you really want to do food, because I think, let's be realistic, food service is the highest, what I think they say,
turnover.
Close. Within 3 years of opening, you'll close it. I think it's like 40%.
Yeah, it's a super high percentage that don't make it past that 3-year mark.
Yeah, so if you don't try to talk them out of it, then I would love to say, hey, everybody, you should do it. It's the greatest, but I think I'd be doing them a disservice, So I tell everybody, don't do it. It's the worst, because you're working 13, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're not getting paid. You're not paying yourself the first couple of years. It's terrible. And if they're like, oh well, I want to work 13 hours a day, then they have that.
But people need my food. They need to try this.
If they have that expectation, then they can go in there, with a good mindset and the will, because all of it's kind of a test of your will. It's like chicken with the economy, playing chicken. It's you have to try to start your business until you get enough momentum to sustain itself. And it's if you chicken out, then you're done. But if you're really strong-willed about it, then that gives you an extra oomph to kind of continue that. And then I think the biggest thing for small business, especially restaurants, is to have a good business plan, financial literacy. And my parents, they're uneducated. They started, I think my dad didn't even graduate high school, but he's running a successful business because he learned that through mistakes and things, from just starting his own business. So I think if I was to say something or impart some wisdom to a young, restaurateur, do your business plan, do your financial literacy. Know that if you want to pay your people $15 an hour, your food cost has to be this high. If you want to, sell gourmet burgers, you can't, you can't price it at $5 and be profitable. It's all about sustainability. And I think the issue we've had with the restaurant culture is, we have McDonald's, it's dollar menu. So we've driven that price down to the point where the average consumer is like, oh well, it's $2 for $1. I'm gonna go for that, but not seeing that if you want quality food, you gotta pay a little more. And it's a constant battle we fight with consumers. It's like, we want to provide good food, but we need you to pay for it. And it's not because we're driving a Rolls Royce. It's because that's how we're sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think that even going back to what you said about the utility cost, that, for the brick and mortar buildings and the brick and mortar restaurants, that going from, what did you say, $3,000 a month to $7,000, that trickles down into the food prices in order to keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
So
I think for us, we slash labor hours, which I hate doing, just because I love my staff. They're the best. And they do the brunt of the work, So we had to slash labor hours. We had to raise prices a little bit, and we were open 6 days. Now we're going to go back to 7 days, just because we have to pivot. If not, then it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Right.
But what do you love about being in the food service business?
I love the relationship of it, and that's why I preach it. That's why I say Mas Filipino cuisine, because I go there, they treat me like family. They're always giving me extra food, and they're like, eat this, try this. And I'm like, no, I need to lose weight. But no, it's I've been in the business since I was 9, and I've seen, people, they have their first dates there, and then they got married and they have kids, or kids are now getting married. And for me, I love that relationship. And I think it's one of those where any business, it shouldn't be transactional. It should be, your business should be relationship based. You should get to know your customers. You should get to know your employees. And you treat them like family. They come out and support you. If it's just, they can. If somebody wants a good burger, they can go anywhere and get one. But if they want a burger from you, they have to come to you. So when you have that relationship based business, I think that's the key, and I think every business should embrace that. If you're not, then you're not setting yourself up properly.
Well, I want to get into this small town business too, and so you said your family had moved here from New York City. That's a huge
It is.
That is a huge
transformation. So, what do you find about small towns, and especially in the Midwest here, and running business? What's the good, the bad, the ugly, all that kind of stuff?
I mean, it's just a lower cost of entry, and I think it's not as cutthroat. You go to New York, it's you're clawing for a piece of that pie. But here, it's a little more laid back. For my parents, it was obviously somewhere to raise us and not, because we lived in Flushing, and it's pretty bonkers over there. But here, it's a better place to raise kids, raise your family. So I think it's a big draw for some people. But I think as a business point goes, it's less cutthroat. That way, you can always pivot, and it's easier to work with. It's not the hustle and bustle. You go to New York and it's 100 miles an hour. Here it's 20 miles an hour, and you get to, and it's a different feel. So if you like the hustle and bustle, maybe a large city is kind of your jam. But if you like the laid back, the relationship kind of building process, then I think a small town is a place to do it. And small towns to come support you. Larger cities, I think. It's very transactional. People are just, especially in New York, that they're angry, and then they're just all the time, But here, people are friendly. People, eating at your establishment, shopping at your establishment, and I think it's vice versa.
So if a business is struggling, would you recommend them putting that out there, maybe on social media or maybe at a chamber meeting, and say, this is what we need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So I think,
because I hear a business is closing, and I didn't know that they were struggling.
Right.
Yeah.
They just shut their door.
And I think it's the difference between being honest with your customer base, and also you don't want to sound desperate.
Yeah. Sure.
It's a fine line. Oh, that's from a business perspective, because you don't, you and that's the issue. If you're like, oh, doom and gloom, people will assume that you're going to close. But if you're like, hey, I'm struggling right now, I need a little help, they'll come and support you. But if you're just like, oh, well, I can't do this, so I think I'm going to shut down, then people get it in their heads. And I hear it a lot just from being on the Eats page, and people, they see me when talking about food, which I love. I'll talk to them all day. But there's been places like, oh, I thought they closed. Like, no. They're still open. Go there and eat. They need your help.
It's like the Vault Cafe downstairs. Last week they brought back the French dip.
Yeah.
Well, someone posted that, right? And then they started sharing and sharing and sharing. I'm like, it's just French dip. No, this is meaningful for people.
Yes.
Because,
And I think you touched on competition earlier. And I think, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, you gravitate towards what you grew up with. I'll take Mary Lou's for example. If you grew up with Mary Lou's, like, you want Mary Lou's. None of the other places can compare, but it's what you grew up with.
Yeah.
So it's important to kind of embrace all the different businesses, even if it's a same breakfast place. So.
Well, I think it's very similar because I feel like we have a very similar mindset in two different industries. You need butts and seats, and
you need butts and beds,
and I need heads and beds. Yes, we definitely heads and beds, and it's interesting because not everybody is going to, especially if you live in Southern Illinois, you're not going to necessarily stay in a place that I provide. But as a person that eats, everybody eats, so we're gonna, whether you own a restaurant or not, you're gonna visit other restaurants. But the point being is that I think that there is a collaborative effort specifically in Southern Illinois where, at least my personal feeling is that I'm here to support other, even if it is competition, if we all look our best and give our customers the best experience, we're going to have more customers. And there's an infinite number of, in my case, tourists that we can draw as long as they have a great experience while they're here. And I think that seems like it goes well for the restaurant industry as well. So if they're having great experiences in one restaurant that's a mom and pop's, then they're more likely to continue going and supporting the mom and pop restaurants. And there is an effort to help make sure that is something that they all look good and they all are doing their best.
Yeah, and I think, with even your business, it's very relationship based. If one person stays there and they had they're like, oh, the owner is amazing, she really took care of me, and they're gonna tell their friends, and next time they have friends come and tell, hey, I have this Airbnb you should stay at,
Yeah.
And I just want to touch on that real quick. But competition, I think competition is great. I just want to say, my wife does all the baked goods, and she has a couple of products that she really posted and shared, and we noticed a few months later other bakeries offering that same thing, and and at first we were like, oh, but really if you take a step back, it's like you're kind of elevating the whole region, with different foods. I'll take birria tacos, for example. Like, people wanted it. Nobody offered it down here. And then, so me and Keisha were like, hey, let's make birria taco. Let's film it. Let's make pictures of it, a little video of it. And within a few months, they started popping up. So I think competition is good because it brings everybody up.
Yeah.
And you can't eat the same place 5 times, 5 days a week. You have the other places. So I think competition is great. So a lot of things I hear is, oh, well, food trucks, they're competing with brick and mortars, and my soapbox I jump on is that if you're a brick and mortar and you're afraid of somebody who, because most food trucks can't cook in a food truck. They can only heat up things. So if you're worried about a food truck, then you need to be worried about your own business, because just because a food truck is limited in what they can do. A food truck can't do steak, they can't do fancy, they're really limited. And I think as a business community, I'll take Ma's Filipino Cuisine, for example, or like Blazing Trail Texas Barbecue. They went from a food truck to a brick and mortar. And that, for as far as the economic impact, that's great for a community, because then you have a brick and mortar, you're paying more taxes. So I think it's important that we embrace competition, and we embrace, yes, it may seem, if you look at it short-sighted, it might seem like, oh, we shouldn't have them here. But a long-term approach, I think it's better to embrace the competition and show them, some love from your community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely the biggest difference of a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset with what you just said.
You sound a lot better than I do, so know.
Just summing it all up there. William, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us today about any of the things that we talked about?
I think if you're hearing this, go out and eat. Go out and eat. Be nice to your wait staff. Know that everybody's shorthanded. If you go there and your biscuits and gravy is 50 cents more, if you can, pay it. Just because I think small business, we're the number one. I think as a group, we hire the most people in in the States as a whole. So we need to make sure we keep those places alive and open. If it's paying a little more, just be nice to each other. When you're out eating, or when you're buying soaps, I've been to the soap shop down the street.
The Lavish
Box, which has been on the podcast.
So if you can, support the small businesses, because they need you, and if they go away, then they're not coming back. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about small business incubation. So EThOs is small business incubator, and you're in the business of supporting businesses. So what do you think we should be providing? What kind of services, what kind of classes and training, what would be ideal from what you see?
I think, like I said earlier, financial literacy, that's really important, because most people know how to cook, but when you tell them, oh, prime costs, insurance, you got to pay, workman's comp and all that, like they don't, they're kind of blindsided by that. So I think a common recurring thing I hear is people not knowing. People want to, let's open a business, let's open a restaurant, let's open something, but not knowing the little details, the little hidden costs and fees. So I think, having a good business plan, financial literacy, that's huge. And just kind of having like a mentor. I think that's super important as any incubator to provide. And I think, we've had incubators they're all over the U.S. It's great, but I think it's important to know that a lot of up and coming entrepreneurs, they don't have a spot. Like they can't afford $3,000 rent, to a brick and mortar. So I think it's important for those of us who are having economic development to understand and try to have a space like a small retail incubator for that, because you see it in big cities, and that's one thing I'm really pushing for in Carbondale, is to have a retail incubator. That way all these small business owners can get a start to kind of build their customer base and eventually move into their own brick and mortar. But that's tough. The first couple of years, it's tough to be able to afford rent and everything else.
So William, how do we find you online, your businesses? What's some places we can go?
Well, you can find me at either New Kahala or the chamber office. My wife does pop-ups at farmers market, so we're at the Carbondale Farmers Market almost every Saturday. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, William Lowe. I think on TikTok it's Hungry Panda 618.
I love it.
And then, and I'm everywhere. You can find me in a restaurant. If you see me in a restaurant, come say hi. Don't be shy.
So cool. What's the chamber website?
Carbondalechamber.com.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome.
Yeah, no.
I love the different perspectives. This is fantastic to ask you these business questions.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to help.
So we've had William Lowe. He's the Chief Executive Officer for the Carbondale Chamber of Commerce, but he's also General Manager at New Kahala Restaurant in Carbondale and co-owner at Bake Me Happy Food Co.
Yep.
Yeah. And shout out to your wife again.
Keisha Lowe is her name.
Keisha.
So, yep.
And then also subscribe to SI Eats on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Thank you for being here. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for everyone for listening to our Small Town Big Business podcast. And thank you to our sponsors, which includes the Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals, Fowler Heating and Cooling, Arcadia Wealth Group, Black Diamond Harley Davidson and RV, Watermark Auto Group Foundation, Swinford Media Group, and Union Street Arts.
And again, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can receive notifications of when we release new episodes every 2 weeks.
And if you want to know more about EThOs and what we provide here in downtown Marion as co-working space, small business incubator, and also some training and development classes, simply go to ethosmarion.org, and you can also go to members.ethosmarion.org. You can sign up to receive our information about the classes, workshops that we have coming up.
And when you subscribe that way, that membership is free for upcoming events, correct?
Exactly. And how do they find Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals?
It is sivr.rentals. That is for Facebook, Instagram, and our website.
Yep. And look for us on Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, and also subscribe to our YouTube video channel. And thank you so much for listening to Small Town Big Business. I'm Russell Williams.
And I'm Allison Hassler. Thanks again.